everybody? My name is James. I am from the internet, and today we are going to be talking about an oldie but a goodie. Now, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but over the last few months, I have been talking about politics as little as possible. At this point, frankly, politics disgusts me. It is a giant raging dumpster fire of mediocrity and a whole bunch of talking heads just going blah, 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 while doing as little as possible to offer substantive change to the people who need it the most. So instead, I have been focusing on labor, workers' rights, and people without the help of the government coming together to demand better. Because frankly, it's a much better story to talk about. However, there is something that has been building in the political sphere for long enough that I can no longer avoid it. In fact, I have a full 10 tabs up on the board, so we're going to have to do our first speed run in a matter of months. Unfortunately, this is the part of the show where I tell you that this entire speed run is dedicated to our old friend, the Tangerine Terror, the Orange Menace, El Presidente, Mr. Donald Trump. I know, not something we really want to discuss. However, there have been so many things that have occurred in the last 72 hours in and around Trump that have a lot of influence over a lot of things going on that I actually am going to run the deck of all these tabs, and then I am going to postulate a theory and tell you why all of this shit is happening. So you might want to put on a seatbelt and kick back, because I'm going to go really fast. You ready? Here we go! Section of Donald Trump's website appears to have been hacked. Oh yeah, here's a shocker and a stunner. Wealthy person spends very little on cybersecurity because they don't really care and they would rather keep their money to spend it on other things. And, you know, when something like this happens, Donald Trump can just sue the people who run the website because, frankly, he's far better at suing people than he is taking preventative measures to keep catastrophes from happening. A hacker appears to have compromised a section of former President Donald Trump's website and replaced it with a slogan and a speech from Turkish President Erdogan. Visitors to a subdomain of Trump's website were greeted Monday with a message from someone claiming to be a Turkish activist. Quote, "Do not be like those who forgot Allah, so Allah made them forget themselves," the message read. Below was a link to an Erdogan speech in which the Turkish president quoted from the Quran. Oops. Now, this is the first story, and I assure you, it gets much danker from here. Donald Trump testifies for over 4 hours in deposition about 2015 alleged assault at Trump Tower. Now, before I quickly tell you about this, I have to let you know that I was actually in attendance at this protest in New York City outside of Trump Tower in 2015, and no, none of my footage was used in the legal proceedings. Now I will continue. Former President Donald Trump answered questions under oath for about 4.5 hours Monday as part of a lawsuit brought by men alleging they were assaulted by his security during a demonstration outside Trump Tower in 2015. Quote, "We examined Mr. Trump on a variety of issues, including statements he has made at various campaign events and rallies that counsel believes encouraged violence at those events or encouraged security guards to engage in violence or the confiscation of property. We covered a multitude of those speeches back in the day, so again, none of this should be a shock to anybody." Up next, Trump sues to keep White House records secret, claiming executive privilege. That's right, there is a mountain slide of lawsuits coming. Trump's trying to get out in front of them by countersuing and drowning people in legal briefs. This is what he used to do back in the day. Only A, he used Roy Cohn, who was a mobbed up lawyer, and B, he only used to do this to people smaller than him so he could bully them around with his wealth and his ability to purchase unlimited lawyers. Former President Donald Trump filed a lawsuit against the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th insurrection and the National Archives in an effort to keep records from his presidency secret by claiming executive privilege. The lawsuit from Trump is an attempt to block the work of the House committee as it investigates his actions before and during the siege of the Capitol. The court action also marks his latest effort in a long and thorny fight against subpoenas from the Democratic-controlled U.S. House. The Biden administration has declined to assert executive privilege over a first tranche of Trump-era records, and Trump is currently opposed to the release of about 40 of the documents. The lawsuit alleges that the House requests are for documents from the executive branch that are unprecedented in their breadth and scope and are untethered from any legitimate legislative purpose. You know, other than trying to prove that somebody possibly had a hand in doing some insurrection. Is there no justice? Trump issues bitter statement after yet another political ally gets indicted. Oh no, political ally. Hey, my Nana, she used to have an old-timey expression, and it went something like this. If you hang out with shit long enough, you begin to stink. So, I don't know what to tell you there, stinky political ally, but you kind of brought this shit on yourself. Former President Trump issued a statement Tuesday night responding to the criminal indictment of Nebraska Republican Congressman Jeff Fortenberry, who's accused of lying to the FBI about illegal campaign contributions. Quote, "Isn't it terrible that a Republican congressman from Nebraska just got indicted for possibly telling some lies to investigators about campaign contributions when half the Congress lied?" Dude, you're literally saying that because you think somebody lied, it's okay for other people to lie. Welcome to Mr. Broken Moral Compass, our former president. I'm just going to keep moving on. Next! Trump's Pentagon chief quashed idea to send 250,000 troops to the border. And this, everybody, this was usually the only time I got very concerned during the Trump presidency, whenever he had to be commander-in-chief, because fucking Cadet Bone Spurs wanted to always do off-the-wall shit like, I don't know, sending a quarter of the U.S. military to the border just for a fucking political gambit and some photo ops, and, you know, to say that he sealed up the border, even though I don't think Mexico was going to pay for that deployment. In the spring of 2020, Mark Esper, Defense Secretary, was alarmed to learn of an idea under discussion at a top military command and at the Department of Homeland Security to send as many as 250,000 troops, more than half the active U.S. Army and a sixth of all American forces, to the southern border in what would have been the largest use of the military inside the United States since the Civil War. Wow, imagine that. Trump wanting to get to some kind of Civil War demarcation of historical relevance. That seems very on brand for the man. With coronavirus pandemic raging, Stephen Miller, the architect of Mr. Trump's immigration agenda and totally not a Nazi, had urged the Homeland Security Department to develop a plan for the number of troops that would be needed to seal the entire 2,000-mile border with Mexico. It's not clear whether it was officials in Homeland Security or the Pentagon who concluded that 250,000 troops would be required. Gee, really weird that this sort of thing is happening to leak now in the middle of all this other crap that's going on that I'm telling you about. More on that when I get to the end. Next! Liz Cheney drops bombshell during hearing and suggests Trump was personally involved in the planning of January 6th. Really, Liz? Please tell me more. Liz Cheney on Tuesday issued a scathing assessment of former President Donald Trump and ally Steve Bannon's decision to stonewall the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attacks on the United States Capitol. After dismantling Bannon's claims that he's protected by executive privilege from testifying before the committee, Cheney speculated that Trump and Bannon had very personal reasons for not wanting any testimony to go forward. Quote, Mr. Bannon's and Mr. Trump's privilege arguments do appear to reveal one thing, however. They suggest that President Trump was personally involved in the planning and execution of January 6th, and we will get to the bottom of that. Cheney also cited Bannon's statements on January 5th, in which he seemed to anticipate that violent mayhem would break out, saying, quote, all hell is going to break loose tomorrow. Oddly enough, Bannon was physically found nowhere near where all hell broke loose because, you know, the kind of people who plan for hell to break loose plan for other people to get injured and end up in legal problems when hell breaks loose while they're 12 blocks away enjoying a cocktail, which again is peak on brand for Steve Bannon. Next, Trump told Senator Tommy Tuberville to protect yourself right before the riot on January 6th. Alabama Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville says former President Trump urged him to protect himself on January 6th as Trump's enraged supporters made their way towards the Senate chamber. Tuberville's retelling of the story was first reported in a profile of the senator in the Washington Post on Tuesday. President Trump mistakenly called Senator Mike Lee of Utah on January 6th, prompting him to hand the cell phone to Tuberville in the Senate chamber. Their conversation took place after Vice President Mike Pence had been evacuated, but before the rest of the senators were whisked away. Quote, "I know we've got problems," Tuberville says the president said. "Protect yourself." After being evacuated to a secure location with the rest of the body, Tuberville was one of a dozen Republican senators, all of whom had intended to vote against certifying some states' electoral votes that huddled together in a storage closet. Wow. Gee, imagine that. Trump possibly set up this whole thing, and the most fucking heads up that he gave people loyal to him was calling them while the mob was like 40 feet down the hallway going, Tommy, you might want to get the fuck out of there right about now. There's a closet at the end of the hallway. Good luck. Click. Trump Organization already under indictment faces new criminal inquiry. Wow, it's like when it rains, it fucking pours. President Donald Trump's family business, which is already under indictment in Manhattan, is facing a criminal investigation by another prosecutor's office that has begun to examine financial dealings at a golf course the company owns. In recent months, the district attorney's office in suburban Westchester County has subpoenaed records from the course Trump National Golf Club Westchester and the town of Ossining, which sets property taxes on the course, a sprawling private club that is perched on a hill north of New York City and boasts a 100-foot waterfall. The full scope of the investigation could not be determined, but the district attorney appears to be focused, at least in part, on whether Mr. Trump's company, the Trump Organization, misled local officials about the property's value to reduce its taxes. Now, this should come as no surprise to anybody who's familiar with Donald Trump's history of grifting. One of his favorite things to do is to underreport the value of a property to minimize the taxes he pays, and then 6 months later, he'll take a loan out against that property, but he'll provide a much higher assessment as to the total value of that property to maximize the amount of money that he can borrow. This has been documented. He's done it multiple times in the past, but now it looks like other district attorneys are getting involved. I wonder why all of this is happening. Let's get to the end and I'll tell you. Next, this is a glimpse into my email box. More importantly, the Trump folder. Almost a year ago, I donated $1 to the Trump campaign just to see what kind of crap I would get in the mail, and boy, was I thoroughly entertained. Now, this email list had gone quiet for the better part of 6 months after the election and Donald Trump's failure. However, in recent weeks, Donald Trump's people have ratcheted up the usage of this account to try to get a lot of money. How do I know that? Because in the last 7 days, Donald Trump's campaign has sent me 50 emails requesting money. Many different angles, many different skews, most of them, however, discussing how Joe Biden is a complete failure, the Marxist socialist left is coming to teach your kids CRT, and how, of course, the election was stolen. That's right, 50 fundraising emails in 7 days, 3 years before the next presidential election. It sounds like Trump needs a whole lot of money for a whole lot of lawyers. So what does this mean for you, the average viewer at home, the fellow member of the working class? Well, not a whole hell of a lot. And I'm going to tell you why. Number one, I don't actually think this is all the Democratic pressure that's causing this. I actually think this is Republican pressure causing this. You see, the Republicans in 2024 very badly want to run on Joe Biden's bad record. They're going to go point by point down to all his promises that he made while campaigning, and then the very few things that he got passed, in part because of the Republican Party obstructing them. The Republican Party doesn't want Trump. They want Trump's voters, they want the energy from Trump's voters, but they don't want to have to keep saying the quiet, racist, horrible, vile parts out loud. They want to go back to it seeming to be a gentleman's agreement. You know, the kinder, gentler side of polite politics. Oh, you lost. Good try, chap. We'll see you again in 2 years. Tally-ho. They want to restore faith in the party to the mass electorate, and they don't want to have their election chances hinging on an extremely unstable windbag completely torpedoing them at any point necessary. Now, the wealthy and the powerful operate on a gentleman's agreement, different from the societal contract that we all honor amongst each other when we see each other out in public places and we don't start fights with each other or try to kill each other. When we drive our cars, we all agree to stay on the right side of the double yellow line so we don't cause accidents. These are just parts of our social contract. Well, the wealthy and the powerful, they have a different contract. And basically it means anything goes as long as you don't fuck with other wealthy or powerful people. Bernie Madoff found out the hard way that when you steal from the poors, the wealthy will protect you. But if you steal from the wealthy, well, the wealthy and the powerful will combine to make the last remaining portion of your life a living hell. That's the agreement. And right now, the powerful people in the Republican Party are pushing against Trump, and they're letting him know that he's on the verge of breaking the gentleman's agreement. Whatever happens in politics happens, but when your turn is over, you shut the fuck up and you let the next wave come forward. And in return, you are allowed to have continued social relevance. However, if you don't, if you keep pushing, you're going to find out what happens when most of the wealthy and powerful abandon you. So, everybody keep your eye on this going forward, as it's going to shape how both Republicans and Democrats run campaigns in 2022 and 2024. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.